Can I be honest with you about something? I'm not the biggest fan of New Year's resolutions. Just as a concept, I'm not a huge fan of them. It's not because I think that it's dumb to try to make changes in your life or to try to better yourself. I think that's a good thing to do. And it's not because I don't think that, you're going to be able to lose the weight or read all those books or whatever resolution it is that you made for yourself. I believe in you. I think you can do those things. And it's not because I don't think that people, by and large, can change, because if I didn't believe that, then why am I doing what I'm doing? The reason why I think that New Year's resolutions, by and large, don't really work and why they're not really a great concept for us is simple, and that's that I think far too often it doesn't lead us to make any actual change. Our resolutions, while they may be good and they may be good-natured, they rarely ever lead us to real change. I mean, if you think about it for a moment, if you're like me, for every one resolution that you were able to keep for an entire year, there are probably hundreds, if not thousands, of resolutions that you made that you abandoned within the first few weeks. Am I wrong? Because some of you are giving me like death glares now. How dare you call me out? But that's just kind of what we do as human nature. We have a tendency to get stuck into these habits and these sorts of things, and when we try to change that, it doesn't really go well for us. Like, think about this. What's the most popular New Year's resolution? The one that everybody makes every single year? To lose weight, right? So let's say like January 1st rolls around and you have just decided that you're going to be determined this year, that you are going to lose those 30 pounds that you need to lose. So you commit that every day you're going to eat salads for lunch. You're going to eat a lot healthier at dinner. You're going to cut out the snacks and the sweets and the fast food and all that garbage. You're going to do it. And so you even go so far as to go to the grocery store on January 1st and you just buy nothing but healthy stuff. You fill your fridge with all kinds of lettuce and tomatoes and all the stuff that you put in a salad and all that stuff, and you fill your fridge with it to the point you have no space for any junk food whatsoever. You're going to make it happen. And then you decide you're going to go to the gym. So you get over there and you pay for the full year's membership for two reasons. One, you've committed yourself now that you're going to do the whole year. And two, the deal that they have on the annual plan is just so much better than the monthly. You'd be stupid not to do it, right? At least that's the way they've convinced you. So you commit, I'm going to be at the gym 3 days a week. I can make that happen. That's a doable goal. And so for the first couple of weeks, you are just awesome at your goals. You've eaten nothing but salads every day for lunch. You've stayed away from those evil fast food places and their delicious menus. You've cut out that junk food. You've eaten nothing but chicken breast and rice for dinner. You're doing so good at it. You hit that gym, you start working out, you've done some with the weightlifting, you've done a couple of jogs on the treadmill. You're feeling really good about where you're at. But maybe about 3 weeks in, maybe if you're a Superman, 4. Lunchtime rolls around and you're hit with a thought. And you can't escape that thought. That thought is really simple. Salads are boring. It is a boring lunch. I don't know about you, I like to get excited about what I'm eating for lunch. And so once you get that thought that salads are boring, the very idea of trying to choke that lettuce and that tomato and that cucumber and whatever else it is you put in there, you just don't think you can do it. So you get another thought in your head. You know what? I've been good. I've done a really good job at this. It's not gonna hurt nothing for me to go get a burger today. That's going to be fine. And so you decide, tomorrow I'll eat the salad again, but today I'm going to spoil myself a little bit. I'm going to go get that cheeseburger that I've been thinking about, that I've been dreaming about. And so you go to that fast food restaurant, you go through the drive-thru, and you get that burger, and you are instantly met with the sudden realization that even the worst fast food burger still tastes way better than the best salad. And so the idea of next day when you're trying to eat that salad, it's a little harder. Because you just know that even if you got just a terrible cheeseburger, it's still going to be better. And all of a sudden, you start realizing that it's not going to hurt nothing if I go get the fast food. And that bad habit that you were able to get rid of for a couple of weeks, that's all of a sudden back in. That healthier eating that you've been trying to do, it's kind of gone now. You begin to notice that your pantry and your refrigerator suddenly have those snack foods and those cakes and those, whatever it is your favorite one is. Right now, my personal favorite, down at Costco, they sell a big giant bag of what's called zebra popcorn. It's caramel corn that's been drizzled with white and black and regular chocolate. Out of this world. I had to tell Mandy last night, please take this from me, save me from myself. I never lost my taste with COVID, and that was probably a bad thing. I lost my smell, that was weird. That's a rabbit trail. All right, anyway. But all of a sudden, you still have that junk food. But that's okay, you know what? Because you're still going to the gym. You're still making that a priority. You're still going and exercising. You're making that happen. But when you get done lifting those weights, man, your arms are like jelly afterwards. It's hard to do even the simplest of things, like open that bag of potato chips. When you get done on that treadmill, you're kind of done for the day. You got things to do at home, but you're just too tired. But you've made a commitment to yourself. You've committed yourself at least through your wallet, so you're going to make this happen. Then all of a sudden, one day you've got it planned. I'm going to the gym after work today. But something happens. Maybe a meeting ran long. Maybe your kid got sick at school, and you have to stay home with them all day, and your ability to get to the gym, well, that's gone. You missed a day. You kind of decide to yourself, I'm going to redouble my efforts. I'm going to go tomorrow. It's going to happen. And something else happens. Something else gets in the way. It's amazing how life continues to throw things in the midst of what we want to do. I mean, I think all of us the last 2 years, we had better plans than stay at home, but life. And all of a sudden, it's been a couple of days. A couple of days turns into a couple of weeks. You've not been at the gym. About March or April, maybe you have that realization of, man, I need to get back there. I paid for the whole year. I got to go. I got to get back into that. But then you start thinking about all the things that you got coming up just this week, and you know there's just no chance you're going to be able to make it. All of a sudden, it becomes not so much that you missed going to the gym because you planned for it, but something happened. All of a sudden, it becomes you didn't plan for it at all. And so come December 31st, when it finally rolls around again, and you're thinking about the resolution that you made at the beginning of this year to lose 30 pounds, you realize you actually gained 5. But next year's going to be different. Next year, you're going to do it. Next year, it's going to happen. Look, it's not that I think that resolutions are a bad thing. I think it's important that we as human beings try to better ourselves. I think it's important for us to try to make changes in our lives that we know to be good for us. But the really underlying problem as to why our resolutions don't work, and the reason why things in our lives don't often happen, and why we try to make even these healthy changes that we know we need to do, the reason why they don't happen is because, well, they disrupt our comfort. We may know that we need to do these things. There are things in my life I know I need to be doing. I'm guessing there are things in your life that you know you need to be doing. So why aren't you? Well, I mean, I can only speak to myself, but I can tell you it's because I've kind of gotten in certain habits. I've allowed things in my life to go a certain way. And so the idea of changing that means it's going to disrupt my usual routine. It's going to disrupt my usual flow. Like, we will always choose comfort over what we need to do. If you know you need to clean your house, but you're sitting on your couch, and you really want to stay on your couch. You need to clean your house, but you want to stay on the couch. 9 times out of 10, you're staying on that couch. If you really want a pizza, but you know you need to be eating more vegetables, probably going to pick the pizza. That's a bad example because you can just get more vegetables on your pizza, right? So that kind of cancels each other out. Bad example. But anyway, oftentimes we will choose what we want over what we need every single time. It's because we as human beings, we are creatures of comfort and routine. We will seek out comfort in every way imaginable. If you think about all of the technological advancements over the last 30 years, all of them were done to make our lives just a little bit more comfortable. Right? We will always choose the things that are comfortable for us as opposed to even what we need to do. And until we can change that need into a want, until we are motivated to the point that we want to make these changes, things will likely stay the exact same way. Most of the time, the reasons why these good changes that we need to make in our lives don't happen is because we don't want to. We don't have proper motivation for it. And it's motivation that I think is key behind our narrative today. We're going to be in Matthew chapter 25, verses 14 through 30. So if you got a Bible or a Bible app on your phone or device of some kind, go ahead and open it to Matthew chapter 25. We're going to be staked out there for the rest of the day today. As you're turning there, let me tell you a couple things about what's going on here. This is one of the parables of Jesus. Parables is such a fun word. The parable was oftentimes Jesus' most used way to teach us. And what a parable is essentially a story about something that we do know that Jesus would use to teach us about things we don't know. He would use these parables and utilize things that we all have some sort of a frame of reference to in order to explain to us things that we have not seen and likely will not see this side of heaven. It was his way of being able to teach us spiritual things even though we are physical beings. So in this particular parable, Jesus begins things off very simply. He starts off in verse 14 saying that the kingdom of God is just like a man about to go on a journey. He called his own servants and entrusted his possessions to them. Now, we don't know a lot about this guy. Jesus doesn't give us a whole big backstory here. But we're already implied right away, just in this one verse, that this guy must be pretty well off or pretty well to do, because he is saying that he's about to go on a trip of some kind. We don't know if it's for business, we don't know if it's for vacation, but he entrusts his possessions, he entrusts his money to servants. He gets together 3 of his most trusted servants, or guys that he believes are going to be able to do stuff, and he's decided that even though he's going on this trip, like a lot of people with a lot of money, that doesn't mean he doesn't want to stop earning money. He wants to see his wealth continue to grow even though he's not going to be around. So he entrusts these guys to be able to take care of some of his wealth. And while he may trust these guys, while he may trust these individuals, I find it interesting that he doesn't trust them equally. Because in verse 15 it says, to one he gave 5 talents, to another 2 talents, and to another 1 talent, depending on each one's ability. Then he went on his journey. Now, before we get too much deeper, I think we got to ask the obvious question here. I think we have to ask the obvious question when we're talking about this particular narrative, and that is simply, what's a talent? See, because in our context, a talent we would ascribe to being somebody who has a gift of ability. They can play basketball better than anybody else. They can draw a beautiful picture better than I can. They have these abilities to them, but that's obviously not what Jesus is talking about here. The talent that Jesus is talking to, we can kind of look at context clues, and it's got to be some sort of a measurement of money. But how much money are we talking about? If you can recall, a couple times in our discussions with one another, we've brought up the concept of a denarius, right? And we said a denarius was for a day laborer, it was what they would expect to make at the end of the day. If you worked an entire day, your salary was 1 denarius if you worked a day. There are some biblical scholars who believe that when Jesus references the word talent, he is talking about 20 years worth of denariuses. Denarii? Whatever the plural word is. 20 years worth of a day laborer's wages for 1 talent. We are talking about potentially millions of dollars today. And that's just 1 talent. This guy has just handed out 8. And I'm willing to bet that 8 talents, these untold millions, if not billions of dollars, I'm guessing that's not his entire wealth. Because who's going to trust their entire fortune to 3 dudes? Right? I know I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to trust my millions and billions of dollars to 3 guys. Oh, I've said too much, haven't I? But he decides to give this money to them, and then he just leaves. It's a little crazy if you think about it. If I gave you millions of dollars and gave you an expectation of what to do with that millions of dollars, and then I just left, You just won the lottery, didn't you? But he does have a certain expectation of these guys. He doesn't out and out say it, but the expectation that's kind of given to these guys is to take this money that they've been entrusted with and to go and grow it. And we know that because as soon as he leaves, and in fact, Matthew actually uses the word immediately. The first guy who got 5 talents, he takes that 5 talents and he puts it to work. And he starts making some really smart investments. He starts building his equity. He does really good at trading stocks, all that things that all of us as adults, we understand entirely, completely, right? I need help, man. I have no idea what I'm talking about. All I know is that this guy was really good with the money that was given to him because over the course of time, he doubled it. He doubled it. He got 5 talents, millions and millions of dollars. And he went out and he made exactly the same amount. That's awesome. I don't think he did it at the casino. And it wasn't just him who did this, because the guy who got 2 talents, he went out, he put it to work, and he doubled it too. So we're talking just between these 2 guys. This one master's wealth went from 7 talents to 14 talents. That's a lot of cheddar. That ain't exactly egg money. That's buying island money. How cool would that? I'm sorry, I saw the rabbit trail. I'm not going down it. Where was I? These guys went out and doubled this money. They showed this master that his trust was not only well placed, but in fact, he probably could have afforded to trust him a little bit more. But that wasn't the case of all 3 of them. Because the third guy, he decides to do something a little special. We're going to go with special. Verse 18, it says what this servant did with the money that was trusted in by his master. It says, but the man who had received 1 talent went off, dug a hole in the ground, and hid his master's money. He buried it. I mean, that's a choice. That's an option, I guess. He went off, took these millions of dollars, and buried it. I'm really hoping that the map he left for himself was really accurate. This is kind of like that relative, that kooky relative that you have who doesn't put their money in a bank, they just stuff it in a mattress. Like, why? Yeah, you can do that, but why would you? Anyway. This doesn't make a lot of sense to me. See, the expectation of the master was clearly to go and grow this money, right? Hello? We know that because the other 2 got that message loud and clear. They went off and they grew what was entrusted to them. That they went and took it and made more of it. But this guy made a decision to bury it. Is that going to grow the money? No. See, here's the reality about this guy. This guy was comfortable keeping it exactly the way that it was. To not grow it, but to not decrease it. Just leave it exactly the same. It was comfortable for him to do that. Sure enough, over the course of time, the master comes back home. And before the guy even has a chance to unpack his suitcase, he decides he wants to settle up with these guys. Verse 19 says, after a long time, the master of those servants came and settled accounts with them. I mean, I know that if I'm leaving people in charge of millions and millions of dollars of my money, I want to know what they did with it as soon as I'm around them again. Right? I mean, now we got cell phones. I'll be texting them about every other day. What'd you do with it? But that's the case. Imagine how delighted that this master would have been when the first 2 guys came up to him. Imagine just how delighted he was when the first guy came, the guy who had 5 talents, and he was able to tell him, sir, not only did you give me 5 talents, but I went out and I put it to work. And not only did I put it to work, I doubled your money. Somebody came up to me and says, hey, I just doubled your checking account. That's an exciting statement to make. Right? If somebody even says, hey, I gave you $5, I'm pretty excited to get $5. This guy doubled millions of dollars worth of him. And then he finds out that the second guy who he clearly didn't trust quite as much, maybe he should have trusted him a little bit more, because that guy took his 2 and made another 2. This guy's wealth has just dramatically grown, all while he was gone. He wasn't around it. He gave it to these guys, and he gave them the sort of expectation that you're going to grow it, and they stinking doubled it. This had to surpass all expectations that this particular master had for these 2. Then it comes time for the third guy. It comes time for him to settle up with what's going on. Before we get there, I need to say this because I think this is important. The master is so excited that verses 21 and 23, which are just after both these guys have reported to him, verses 21 and 23 are exactly the same. Because the master is so excited that he says, "Well done, good and faithful servant. You were faithful over a few things. I will put you in charge of many. Share your master's joy." What a great line. These guys who were faithful and did what was expected of them and surpassed what was expected of them have made their master so excited that they are invited to go deeper. They're not just rewarded for it, but they're invited to share in the joy of their master. The third guy has seen all of this happen. And all of a sudden he's hit with the realization, and it's way too late, that maybe I shouldn't have buried it. And as much as I love to expand and try to give emotion to some of these narratives that we discuss, I really don't think I can do it any better than the way it's written. We see it in verses 24 through 30. It says, "The man who had received 1 talent also approached. He said, 'Master, I know you. You're a harsh man, reaping where you haven't sown, gathering where you haven't scattered seed. So I was afraid. I went off and hid your talent in the ground. See, what you have is yours.' His master replied to him, 'You evil, lazy servant. If you knew that I reap where I haven't sown and gathered where I haven't scattered, then you should have deposited my money with the bankers, and I would have received my money back with interest when I returned. Take the talent from him, give it to the one who has 10. For to everyone who has, more will be given. He will have more than enough. But from the one who does not have, even what he has will be taken from him. Throw this good-for-nothing servant into the outer darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth.'" As I read that, I can't help but notice. Maybe you noticed it too. As soon as this servant is confronted with the idea that what he did was not the right thing to do, that his staying comfortable with the way things were, rather than going out and doing what was expected of him, his first instinct before his master even says one word to him is to make excuses. He comes up with excuse after excuse as to why he didn't do this thing that was expected of him, why he didn't do the thing the master had trusted him to do. He makes up excuse after excuse. Understand something. I think it's easy to get kind of lost in this particular narrative. The expectation was not that they would double what was given to them. The expectation was that they would grow it. Right? I mean, the master even said, if you just had trusted it to the bankers, I still would have collected interest on it. Even if he had done the bare minimum, it still would have seen some growth. That was clearly what was most important to this particular master. But this guy was comfortable, leaving it exactly the way it was, leaving things exactly the way that they were, knowing that that was not what he was meant to do, knowing that that was not his expectation. He knew he needed to grow it, but he wasn't motivated to do it. And it wound up costing him everything. To not only lose out on the money that he had been entrusted with, but to actually be cast away. All because he wasn't motivated to do what was expected of him. And I think the same can be said about the church today. If I were to say the phrase that every Christian is called by Jesus to share our faith, to lead others to follow him, I sincerely doubt anyone in this room would disagree with me. Am I wrong? Does anybody disagree with that statement? That is the responsibility of every Christian to go out and lead others to Jesus. Now, see, we all know that. It's a universal command of all Christians to do this very thing, to go out there, to share our faith with the people that surround us, to grow the church of Jesus Christ so that they may continue to find him, to redeem the world around us. So why aren't we? That hurt? Sorry. Yeah, not that sorry. We all know we need to do this. Every single one of us in this room knows that we need to be sharing our faith with the people that surround us. And yet we aren't. Instead, what do? Well, just like the servant, we come up with excuses, do we not? The thing I hear most from most Christians is that the thing that they're most afraid of, the thing that they are most worried about when it comes to sharing their faith is that they're afraid they're going to be rejected. That the people that they're sharing their faith with are going to reject them entirely. That they'll lose out on the relationship simply because they tried to share Jesus with them. I got to be honest with you, I don't buy it. The reason I don't buy it is because a lot of you have absolutely no problem posting your beliefs on Facebook and even going so far as to, if people disagree with you, to unfriend you. I know it because I've seen it. So if we're willing to be that bold about some political idea or something that, frankly, in the grand scheme of eternity isn't going to matter, that Jesus expects of us, it's going to make changes. We've gotten really comfortable with the way things are. We've gotten kind of in our comfortable groove about the way that our church flows and about who's there and about who we're going to be able to see and who we're going to be able to talk to. And if we start adding new people to that, well, it's going to make some changes. And then what if those new folks that come in, what if they have new ideas? Well, then it's going to change the way that we do things. Probably the biggest reason why we're not really sharing our faith is because it will disrupt our comfort. We like things the way that they are. Do we not? I mean, you keep coming back, so I assume. We've gotten comfortable. Our motivation in the church far too often seems to be to seek out our comfort above everything else, rather than doing the very work that we know our Master expects us to do. Another statement that I think I can make here that I think everybody would agree with is that we love Jesus. That we love him with all our hearts, that we want to do everything we can to please him. And yet what did Jesus himself say? In John 14, verse 15, Jesus told us, "If you love me, you will keep my commands." And the command that Jesus gave to each and every Christian multiple times, not just in Matthew 28:19, but multiple times throughout his ministry, Jesus gave the command to go and spread his gospel. To share your faith with those that are around you, to try to do everything that you can to get them to find Jesus so that they can develop a relationship with him too. Yeah, it's going to lead to some changes. But change isn't always, and in a lot of places I would say it rarely ever is, a bad thing. If we think about some of the ways that our lives have changed over the last 30 years, not just in technological advancements, but in the way that we live, period, I don't think many of us would call them to be bad things. They have negatives, but so does everything else in life. But by and large, the changes that we have made, we think are good. The reality is we just need proper motivation to do this. We need something to push us, to change our knowledge that we need to do this into a want and a desire to do this. And frankly, folks, we shouldn't be that stretched to find motivation to go and share the gospel. I mean, it could save people that we know and we care about from an eternity away from God. That's a pretty good one. Or our sharing of our faith is going to remind us of where we've been with Jesus. It's going to lead us into a deeper worship of him and draw us even closer to him. That's a pretty good one. But I think really our fundamental underlying motivation should be simple. And it should be the same motivation that we have in nearly every other element of our lives as a Christian. That we might bring glory and honor to Jesus. So that one day, when we are standing before him, we can hear those words ourselves coming from his mouth, the mouth of our master, telling us, "Well done, good and faithful servant. Share in your master's joy." I got to think that sharing in the joy of Jesus himself, that's got to be something special. I don't want to miss it. I hope, I trust that you don't want to miss it either. The way that we make sure that that happens is simple. We don't get comfortable. We allow ourselves to get out of our comfort zones. We know what we need to do. You know what you need to do. I could sit up here and I could give you different schemes and different ideas of how to make it happen, or different plans or whatever else. But the harsh reality is you know what you need to do. So today, to maybe give you a gentle push, and I'm not sure I can use the word gentle after that sermon. Bev, what do you think? No, Bev doesn't know either. But today I want to give you something to kind of push you, to help you along, hopefully. I want to lay out what I'm calling our 52-week challenge. On the back of your sermon notes, the little cream-colored insert in there, you will find the 52-week challenge laid out. It's got a little statement there, and it's got 5 blanks. Now here's what you do with those 5 blanks. I want you to, over the course of the day today, could be during our time of invitation. If you want to use the time of invitation today to do that, and you want to stay seated so that you can fill out those 5 blanks, please do that. Maybe it'll be after lunch today, whenever you've got a quiet moment to yourself. Maybe it's after you wake up from your Sunday afternoon nap. Maybe it's halftime of the football game. Go Niners. Whenever the case may be, at some point in time today, write down 5 names. 5 names of people that you know, or at least you strongly suspect, have no relationship with Jesus whatsoever, who aren't connected to a church, who aren't in any way, shape, or form spiritual beings at all. Write down those 5 names. And then I want you to commit. Commit to 2 things, possibly 3, at least 2. Number 1, commit to praying for them. I believe that there's sincere power that comes in our prayer. That when we begin to pray for the people that are around us, it changes things. And it ushers the Holy Spirit of God to be at work. So begin to pray for those 5 people that you know don't know Jesus. And then, and this one's going to be hard, commit that over the next 52 weeks, you're going to do everything you can to share your faith with them. To tell them about Jesus. To tell them about what he's done in your life. Tell them about his goodness and his grace and his mercy and his justice and his love. I could do it. I could go to your friends, to your list, and I could tell them all about Jesus myself. But they don't know me. They know you. It's going to be a lot more impactful coming from you. And thirdly, if they don't have a church home or if they don't have a place to go, invite them to come here. Please understand, this is not like a double up the room sort of thing or a fill the pews sort of idea here. If that happens, great. But that's not what our motivation is. Our motivation is in the hopes that these people who don't know Jesus get to know Jesus because of you. So that maybe in 52 weeks from now, you can look across your pew around you at 1 or 2 or even 5 or maybe even more people who are there, who have made a decision about Jesus because you did what was expected of you in the first place. Because you did what you needed to do. I don't know who these 5 people are going to be for you. Could be friends, could be coworkers, could be your own children, could be your grandchildren, it could be the kid who bags your groceries at Meijer. But make a commitment, not a resolution, a commitment to lift up these 5 people. If you find out that one of them on your list does already have a relationship with Jesus, that's awesome. Celebrate that. And then take their name off your list and put another name down. I genuinely believe that if you will commit to praying for and speaking with these 5 people, there's absolutely no chance whatsoever that it can't lead to something awesome. Is it going to be hard? Sure. Is it going to take you out of your comfort zone? Probably. But it's going to be worth it. Because then one day, you'll get to stand before him and hear him say, "Well done. Come and share in my joy." Isn't that motivation enough?